Okay. So again, Amani, I've got to ask this question. Zaini to Airtel, there's this whole Pan-Afric thing happening. Of course, when it comes to Pan-Afric, you cannot not mention or pick you. And you're picked for this project. Tell us about this project. I don't even want to give it out for those guys who may not know it.
So, interestingly enough, when we were about to release the album and we're talking about the brand Amani, how she's gonna, that's basically Amani. We even had, I had an entire thing written out about the attributes of Amani. She's this, she's this, she's this. There were 3.
You're talking this like it's a persona. It's like somebody different.
Yes, it is.
There's you, there's
Wairimu is an introvert. Left Wairimu, she would probably never end up on stage. There's a vision about who I am as an artist, objectives, the attributes of me as an artist, and short-term and long-term goals. Everything had been written down. After I worked at Canada, and I realized that for you to, what brand building is all about and what a brand is, because people will say brand this, brand that. Do you really have a brand? What are you? Are you really a brand, or are you just hyping yourself because you had the word brand and it sounds nice? Nataona kunataka kujita brand. You sound poor.
Acha kuchoma.
But are you really a brand? Yeah. So we just, after we're writing all that, Francis asked me, so which product do you see yourself very similar to? And I thought about it. He was like, go think about it. So I thought, and I was like, I came back and I remember I'd seen then Zayn, they were writing about who they are as a brand and everything, and I'd already written my own. And I was like, they're similar. And I went to friends, I'm like, look, I didn't even have to look back. We're similar. As brands, we are similar. And he was like, that's interesting. They're like, do you think they'd be interested? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. And by then, I knew somebody who worked there. And I was like, yeah, we want to see them, see if we can have a brand partnership and everything. And the person arranged the meeting, and me and Francis made our way. This was before that Airtel thing. So me, I'm thinking, hey, we're similar. Let's see how we can work together. Hey, we left that meeting like this. Like, okay, sawa.
Why?
I don't think they were ready to work with me then. And yeah. So I just was like, sawa, it's okay. What you're looking for, I probably don't have it, so it's fine. And I went back into my life of gigging. Then I remember just before the Airtel deal came, Francis called me and said, hey, there's another deal. I'm like, interesting. I was like, who? Like Safaricom. I'm like, oh, they're doing Safaricom Live. I'm like, He's like, oh, we need to go see Mike. I'm like, okay, so remember we went to Safaricom House, so microbar. And Francis did not think the deal was favorable. Me, I'm thinking, who else do you have? Like, oh, all the other artists are there. Nini is there, Joakali is there. So I'm like, that's the entire industry. Francis is seated there. He's like, look at me like, shh. I'm thinking, sign the papers. Everybody's there.
We don't leave gigs. Two apart here, 2 gigs.
What is going on here? Francis is thinking, and if he could, he would have sellotaped me at that time. I'm looking at him like, dude, man, they're doing 10 gigs. We need this, If we don't get this, where are we going to get money? And everything. Francis is hold. Akotuapo. Calm down. Me, I'm thinking, sign this thing. Francis is like, okay, fine. We'll get back to you. We're in the lift. I'm telling Francis, can we go back there and sign that thing? I'm like, so are we signing? Francis looks ahead, straight face. No. I was like, why? Why are we not signing? I want to sign. You don't want to sign. You don't want money. Isn't that money they've given us there? And he said, I'll explain why. Just go home. We'll meet tomorrow. I'm like, can we sign? And I went home and I tried to understand why he was not for signing. But today I know why.
Why?
He knew the impact I had as a brand. And that was not my value.
Yeah.
And he said, we have not worked this hard for this. Mimi, I was taking the gig because we don't leave gigs. We take them.
Give them their 2 songs.
Give them their 2 songs and keep it going. And I told him every other song is going to be on that thing. I mean, every other artist, is going to be on that thing. They're going to be doing the live thing and everything.
This is a first Safaricom Live.
Yeah. And he was like, no. So I asked him, so what am I going to do? Everybody's going to be on this thing. And he joked and he said, well, if all of them, they're doing those ones, then it means you might have an allowance to get the rest they leave. And I'm like, oh, okay. Aha moment. Zile hata sintachukua. And we went home. We didn't have any deal. We didn't have nothing. And I was like, whew, this one's going to hit hard. So I thought about what the impact of Safaricom Live would do. Safaricom is a big brand. They're going to take them to all these towns. They're going to be doing these live gigs. I've just finished doing my 2 hours in those towns. Meanwhile, they're going rigged up nicely
heavy live band.
And I told Francis, I'm like, even at that, man, these guys are going with live band, the full thing. Na ile force ya advertising ya Safaricom na kila kitu. I hear they're even being trained on how to perform. And then he's like, you went to Norway? I'm like, yeah, for 3 years. Yeah, got trained by a very good lady. I'm like, yes, you're fine. And I left it at that. I'm like, the deal is to be signed. We're when it comes to the album, we're partners in that, and this, I can't just decide, forget you and go sign it. It can't happen. And I just decided to just immerse myself in work. I was like, you know what, let's get back to what we do best. Let's gig. And we went back to gigging. Then one day I get a phone call from someone, and she's like, hi, is this Amani? I'm like, yeah. Do you remember me? And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you. And she's like, I need to meet you about something. And I met up with her, and she said, as she was talking, I was like, see God, see God, what? See God, see God. And of course, I'm trying to contain myself. I'm like, okay, I'll talk to my executive producer. I'll get back to you. Meanwhile, hey, I'm like, oh, thank you, God, thank you. And I went to the car and I called Francis. I'm like, I think we have something. He's like, don't get too excited. Don't negotiate, I'll negotiate. I'm like, huh? You might refuse this one. Like, and I told him, I'm like, well,
Francis is good. Artists need a Francis in their life.
Like, don't negotiate, I'll negotiate. I'm like, but dude, man, you might leave this one. Like, we left the other one. You might just throw me under the bus. And he's like, trust me, I'll negotiate. And he went in and they negotiated. And he came back and he was smiling and he said, this one is good. I like it's good. Yeah, it's good. I'm like, okay. And when I saw what it involved, I was like, oh my goodness. This is good. And I was just happy. I was like, I'm a female artist. I'll be representing Kenya. And I'm not the curtain raiser and I'm not filling in.
Yep.
It's me. And I was happy about that. So, deal came out, billboards. Then they had scratch cards on scratch card posters, the full.
So first and foremost, they made you the brand ambassador for Kenya, Airtel.
Yeah.
Which on its own was crazy.
Yeah.
And then now was this other project, Hands
Across the World, was now the project. They were going to have an official ringtone, so to speak. So Hands Across the World is going to be the official ringtone for Airtel that was going to be on all Airtel phones that they sell together with the SIM cards across Africa. You don't get very many female entertainers. They're kind of scared to go out there and do entertainment because of how they're perceived in society, to be laid back and mothers taking care of children. So the whole entertainment thing just looks like, oh, no. But I just hope this will inspire more women to think, you know what? We can do this. It's possible.
1A Project, being free.
Yo. Yeah. And that's now when the R. Kelly thing came in.
Yeah.
So, I know with surviving R. Kelly, there's a whole lot
of... a whole story over there.
They denied R. Kelly. But I just want to talk about the story at the time. You get what I mean? So, first and foremost, R. Kelly is one of the biggest artists in the world at this time. He's coming to Africa. He's producing a song that's been done by you, and which other artists were there? I know
there's Two-Face Idibia, there's Navio.
Navio, yes.
There's Ali Kiba. There was Movazelaine from Gabon. There was who else? There was JK from Zambia.
Yo.
And also I think there's someone from Ghana. I can't remember. Yeah.
So they fly
There's
you
a
guys
group from Ghana.
on
I've
that
forgotten
song.
the name. Yeah.
So they fly you guys over to States
Imagine, yeah, Chicago.
to work with him.
Yes. And
How-
his producers and his engineers.
What was that experience like?
That was like 7 days of fast forward in my life. Like it happened so fast. And I remember the lady who had given me a phone call, she was there and she was like, "You're nervous." I'm like, "Yes, that's why I'm not talking." I couldn't talk half of the time. I was just experiencing it. I couldn't talk. I'm like, wow. And you enter the studio and they start telling you the history about the studio. You know, they're like, Michael Jackson recorded here. I don't know who recorded here. I'm like, hey, we're recording here. And you don't want to look like, uko na hiyo my excitement. Unataka ukae, niko sawa. But inside, you're just having these emotions. I mean, everything. For the first time, I got to understand, vile artists must treatiwa sasa proper. And, yeah. You go to that studio, you see the professionalism in that studio and how they record and how, they're so particular about everything. And I remember even then Lucas calling me and telling me, "Don't embarrass us, you better do this." Like, "So you recorded?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Was it good?" I'm like, "I think it was." "So you made it?" I'm like, "It was. I did my best. It was good."
He wrote the song, he being R. Kelly.
Yes, he did.
Then so what happens? Does he talk to you and find out things about you, and then now
Yes,
writes
we talked and everything. I remember at one point in time as artists, we're just in the studio, sat down on the carpet, talked about experiences, talking about Africa, talking about music and everything. We interacted. Yeah.
Now that song comes out huge, of course, because it's got Airtel backing, and Airtel is in all these different African countries. Does this mean now you begin performing in different African countries?
Yeah.
This Pan-African vibe, you called it, and it became
Yes.
like, first and foremost, for somebody to say Pan-African, I'm trying to be a Pan-African artist at that time, that's dreaming beyond.
Yeah, it was dreaming beyond. And even till today, if you ask Francis, we didn't quite get there. Because his vision was even much greater than that.
Yeah.
He was like, Pan-African artists get to the level of Yvonne Chaka Chaka.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And that's the benchmark that you had put.
That's the benchmark I was working with.
Sure.
So with every other noise that was going on around me in Kenya, people saying this, people saying that, that is where I was working.
So you guys, with Airtel, you do tours in different countries now.
You now not only doing tours with Airtel, because you see there were launches that were happening in different countries. There was Ghana, there was Tanzania, there was Uganda, there was Nigeria. So you go kwa hizo launch zote. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. But that must have been an experience and a 3/4.
It was an experience and a half, and I'm grateful for it, that I actually got to experience that. And it also made me realize something. Sometimes you think that your song has not traveled that far. Again, power VCD. So you'll be in another African country that you don't even think your song, people know it. And they're like, yes. Like I remember meeting P-Square and they're like, "We know your song." And I'm like, what? I thought that song just rotated around East Africa. And they're looking at you like, what are you talking about? We knew you here. And yeah. You really don't think it has gone that far, but nasema hiyo tena power ya VCD.
I think it's power your grind, to be honest. When I hear you speak, I just see such a hard worker who doesn't give up no matter what is being, the madness being thrown her way or the roadblocks coming.
Yeah.
So I just think the VCD was one of the things that helped you.
Yes.
But to be real, the fact even you're saying you're doing every gig, as a musician, I know the amount of work it takes to do gigs. If you're off stage, it's fun and you want to be that person, but it's work.
It's a lot
this
of
is
work.
your work, your 9 to 5.
You don't sleep. And of course, there are a lot of things that happen in between. When you're doing gigs, people want to interact with you when you go to that particular town. And they want to, you know, they want to interact with you and everything. And when you don't, they'll be like, she's a snob. But I'm thinking, if I interact with you, I'm going to be late for my next gig. And if I'm late for my next gig, the person I'm late for will be pissed off. So...
And my name begins getting that reputation.
Exactly. So I remember even at some point in time, I had to slow down on how many gigs I took in a day because of, you know, being late. Because you see, you could go for a gig, maybe they're having an afternoon thing, and they've said that you're going to go on stage at 3, but you go on stage at 4 o'clock, and you have another one, and the person you're going to after that is like, you know, why is she showing up late? But, you know...
And they have,
you can't start saying, oh, unajua nilikuwa na gig. You'll be thinking, aren't we paying you enough? Yeah. You know, so yeah, it can get tricky also.
Oh, I get it. Hey, that's some good problems to have, but they're problems too.
But there are problems.
I know, I hear you.
Because later on, you know, when now it got to a place, I didn't realize some of the things that were going on. I didn't realize that, you know, when you've worked on a strategy for so long and the strategy starts coming together, you're working towards a goal and you're working towards a strategy and you're working as a team. But out there, people are working against it, like, we need to stop her. So it wasn't that she was being stopped as a female artist. Now it became, you need to stop her money. So all sorts of things. You get late for one gig. Before you know it, it's in the papers. Oh, she got late. She comes late for gigs. That's become the thing. She's always late. And, you know, Francis is like, man, then stop taking the gigs. And I'm like, dude.
This is what I do.
What do you mean? Stop taking the gigs.
I'm not going back to agency.
It's through the agency. So it's those sort of things. And I didn't realize that that's what was happening. Yeah. That because now the brand was slowly becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Of course, I had my manager, Doreen, but she flew out. She went to Canada. And in between there, I struggled with a few managers here and there. And Francis kept repeating, you need a manager as a buffer. You know, you can't be dealing with the promoters trying to explain to them that I got late at that other gig. And, you know, he was like, you're an introvert. You're going to look pissed at some point. You know, which is true. I mean, I'm an introvert and I'll be like, okay, sawa. You know, and yeah, he was like, you need proper management. You need proper management. Yeah.
Did you get to a point where you got proper management?
I'd say... In my view, the best manager I had was Doreen, and it was sad that she had to fly out. I feel we could have accomplished much more together.
I get. Okay, yeah. I love what you're saying. Explain the importance of a manager and what makes a good manager, in your view.
Very important, and a manager